This video will provide an overview of the lessons for week 31, days 6 through 9. Week 31 is a 4-day week. This week, students will begin their work on the culminating project for the unit of climate change by choosing a goal for their project. First, students will learn about the culminating project, a school-based climate action plan. Next, they will begin creating the class concept map for the unit. Then, they will reflect on their learning so far in the liftoff task. Finally, they will start working in the new project organizer, summarizing what they've learned so far and making connections to the culminating project for the unit. Now we'll go through the main activities and key points from each day, starting with day 6. On this day, to start the week, students will learn about the group and individual components of the culminating project for the unit. Begin by having students explain what they think is the main cause of climate change, based on what they learned in the previous week. They should be able to cite an increase in greenhouse gas emissions as the main driver of climate change. However, this is also an opportunity early on to identify misconceptions that students may have. Another video, included with this week's slides, covers several common misconceptions around climate change and how you might address them. Introducing the culminating project here in the beginning of the unit allows students to make connections and plans throughout the unit, rather than waiting until the very end to start. This unit's project will help students apply their learning about climate change to solve a real-world problem. Here's the situation. The school board is asking for proposals to reduce the school's impact on climate change. Students will create a presentation and propose a solution that meets the specifications of the board. Be sure to review these specifications with students. A separate video, included with the slides for day 6, goes into more detail about the project as well. The group presentation itself should be just a few minutes long and clearly outline the proposed solution that students have come up with. As for the last unit, this project has both a group and an individual component. This time, the individual component is a short, one-page school newsletter article about the proposed plan. The article should include a rationale based on students' learning of the hows and whys of climate change. It should include a description of the plan, why the plan will work to reduce emissions or reduce the impact of climate change, and it should also include the challenges that students foresee in the implementation of their plan. Students will likely have a lot of questions about the project, so be sure to give time for that. If students seem overwhelmed, remind them that they haven't learned that much yet about climate change. By the end of the unit, they will have gained a much deeper understanding of the issues, causes, and effects of climate change that will enable them to be successful in this project. If you are able to at your school, make this project real by arranging for students to actually present their ideas and implement them, either presenting to the school administration, the PTA, local school board, or another organization. It will likely help students a lot to see an example of this project themselves. Watch the video linked on slide 19 so students can get an idea of how this could work. It will likely answer some of the questions they have and hopefully inspire them to do the same. Then on page 10 of the student handout, students should write a list of questions that they will need to answer in order to complete the project. This can be done in their project groups, or in other small groups, or even independently. The following day, students will begin creating the class concept map for the unit. The purpose of the concept map is to help facilitate student questions and understanding of the content. It's always best to let students lead concept map discussions with their own questions and connections. First, start by having students list everything they know about climate change so far. The list doesn't need to be organized or even use scientific vocabulary. It's basically a brain dump of everything they've learned so far or that they already know. Then, in small groups, students should share their lists, looking and listening for things they have in common and new ideas. Students should highlight the commonalities, things they heard from multiple or all group members. Circle new and unique ideas. Write a question mark next to ideas that your group isn't sure about. That could mean an idea the group disagrees is accurate or true, or just something they're not sure they believe yet. Then, each group should share their ideas on a Jamboard or other collaborative tool. If there's time, give groups the chance to look at other groups' lists. Perhaps you can even have them iterate the annotations they used. thus creating a whole class list of commonalities, new ideas, and unsure ideas. When creating the class concept map, let the students lead. There are many tools like Jamboard or Google Slides that could be used for students to collaborate on this. That way, rather than just telling you what to write or add to the map, they can do it themselves after sharing their idea. Key questions go in circles, with possible answers in squares. Arrows connect ideas, while cross-cutting concepts can be designated using different colors. Or add your own annotations, a color or symbol for ideas that the class isn't sure about yet, for instance, or bold outlines on ideas that everyone agrees on completely. The most important thing to remember is that this concept map is by and for the students. It's an excellent tool to return to at the end of each task in the unit, and a great way to have students practice metacognitive skills as they revise and add onto their understanding of climate change. It's more important that students lead the process and feel a sense of agency and ownership than it is for the concept map to just show the right answers. On day 8, students will reflect on their learning so far from the liftoff task. Start by asking students to list the ideas that they find most interesting so far that they would want to continue investigating. Then, students will be writing on page 12 of the student handout for their reflections. Remember these 4 images from the previous week? Initially, students wrote observations about what details they saw in the photos. Now, students should look back at those images and consider what they've learned from the graphs they've analyzed, the videos they've watched, and the discussions they've had with peers so far during the unit. What can they add to their observations now? Which details did they not notice or include at first? Then, students should consider the concept of cause and effect, writing an example that they have learned about so far. To wrap up the week and the liftoff task, students will make connections to the culminating project for the unit. On page 10 in their student handouts, students wrote a list of questions. Now they should revisit or add to that list. What do groups need to investigate further in order to inform their audience about climate change? On page 5 of the project organizer, students should summarize what they've learned so far about climate change. What is climate change? Why should we care about climate change? Students should use the information from the videos and class discussions, as well as the graphs they analyzed, in order to explain this to the school board or other organization that they will be presenting to in the culminating project. Additionally, students should identify the problem that they are going to address and what additional areas they will need to explore in order to do so. If students are still not totally sure which problem they will address in their proposal, make sure that they can narrow it down for now to a list of just a couple of options. Finally, in pairs, students should share their work in order to receive feedback. Students should specifically help each other revise or improve their descriptions and definitions of climate change and its causes. Those are the major tasks and key points for week 31, as students wrap up the liftoff task and begin their planning for the culminating project for this new unit, climate change.